Okay, okay. You know, I'm sure it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. The fact that I know how this whole thing is going to go down in the end is, like, really putting me on edge. Very impressive, Mr. Wright. I have to say, I expected nothing less. We've only just begun. I was hoping you could tell me a bit more about what happened, actually. Did not think you would believe me if I told you. Better that you discover the truth for yourself. I was thinking of you, you know. I think we need less thinking and more talking. That night in the hospital, what really happened? The way your eyes gleam, Mr. Wright. You'll scare Trucy. Speaking of which, where is she? You have seen the problem yourself. The letter. The one shot in the forehead one, right? Yes, and the reason he speaks of. I could not deny my mentor's wishes, even if it meant my own death. Why not? This is something I will not say, for now, at least. What's this for now business? I have done many things in my life, some well, some poorly. But this is a cross we must bear alone to our graves. We? You wanted to know about the night of the incident? Finally, this guy sure likes to take his time getting to the important stuff. Of course, I had no intention of shooting my mentor. And I snuck into his room that night at the appointed time. And found there upon his bedside two pistols. Two? Yes. The one I had used on stage, and the one that had been used by my partner, Valance. Oh, for the Zack and Valance quick draw thing. My mentor had the look of one sleeping. I stood by his bedside, hearing only the light sound of his breathing. Then I took the pistol into my hands. I cannot deny that my resolve faltered then, for a moment. You faltered? You mean you thought about shooting him? Recall, there was a reason I could not refuse his request. His last such request, though not his first. So, there were other requests you couldn't refuse before? To be honest, I've not always been steadfast, and I fear I've brought pain upon Trucy. Was Magnifi coercing his disciples somehow? Just what was going on in Troop Gramarye? Yet, in the end, I did not shoot him. Instead, I turned and shot the clown. I took the pistol I had fired and placed it in my pocket. In your pocket? I believe if you examine the bullets in the clown's head, you will find it to be different than the one in my mentor. What were those called again? Rifling marks. Yes, well, that is all I have to tell you concerning the case. Concerning the case? You mean there's something else you can tell me? You are a fascinating man, Mr. Wright. Damn straight he is. Thanks. Yes, there is something. My mentor. His eyes opened. Eh? Magnifi Gramarye? The old devil. He was not asleep, you see. Of course, the gunshot would have woken him anyway. And there we had our last discussion as mentor and pupil. It was not a long discussion. Maybe 5-10 minutes or so. What did you talk about? Ha ha! Mr. Wright! Did I not just tell you? It does not concern this case. Zack Gramarye. He seems pretty steadfast to me. Or maybe just stubborn. Mr. Wright, your presence is requested in the courtroom. Once again, I am in your hands. Right, let's get back in there. Okay, alright. Oh boy. I mean, naturally, the end result of this entire thing is going to end on using this. Oh boy, okay. During our recess, a bullet was found and dug out of the clown's head. Oh, this is news. And the rifling marks? There wasn't time to do a detailed analysis, though they did find the weapon type matches the murder weapon. The type, not the specific gun. Well, that's not very conclusive, is it? Which is why I'm about to call my very decisive witness. Your decisive witness? How many times have I heard those words? Though they often turn out to be far less decisive than you think. Ah, Phoenix, you're so confident. Ah. Oh, don't worry on my account. I'm quite confident this witness will do the job. After all, he is intimately acquainted with the players in our little production, being the other half of Troop Gramarye's famous duo, Zack and Valent. Valent Gramarye. So we get to meet the great Magnifi's other disciple. Ah, no mustache! Perhaps we'll start by asking your name and occupation. Valent Gramarye, magician. And you're the decisive witness, are you? You can prove your fellow students your partner's guilt? Fate, the grand illusion, filled with traps and tricks and trips and other such things. I'm not bad at words. Wait, the shooting took place in that hospital after 11 o'clock at night. If you're a witness, does that mean you were there late? If one were to deduce this logically, the conclusion is yes! Okay. I always get the characters, don't I? I have an interesting fact for you. You see, several days before the crime, my witness received this. That looks very familiar. Wait, that's the same letter Zack Gramarye received. Yes! Or perhaps I should say, ta-da! Order in the court! And what does it say? Surely not the same thing. Perhaps you should see for yourself. Oh, come on to the 13th at 11:20 p.m. Why, it's practically the same. The court accepts this into evidence. Was the idea that he was just kind of banking on at least one of them agreeing to do this? This is most unusual. Exactly what was going on with you folks? What exactly was your Troop Gramarye up to? By which you mean? I'm just having trouble envisioning a man who would ask his students to kill him. Both of them, no less. Did he expect Zack to wuss out? Like, what was the goal here? It's just my opinion, Air Judge. But from these letters, I'd say he was coercing them, not asking them. We walked the magician's path together, and in doing so, shared much of our lives. When people are so close, there is strain. A warping of relations, you might say. Yet this has nothing to do with the case at hand. By which you mean you're not going to tell us. Delightful. Which makes me wonder even more about this reason they couldn't refuse. Well, let's get on with the testimony for starters. The defendant, Zack Gramarye, stands accused. Tell us why. Oh, I'll do more than that. For where he walks, the red roses rise, singing hymns to the miracle that is magic! Fascinating. Though I hardly need to remind you that the evidence could just as clearly point to you as the suspect. The letter, the murder weapon, and now the 2 bullets found at the scene. In fact, the only difference seems to be the designated time. Ha 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 ha! Oh dear God, don't put me in jail. As every magician knows, timing is everything. Yes. And now it's time to get this party fired up! Or we could keep it on the down low. Nice chill time, that'd be cool. That night, I visited the hospital room at the time Magnifi requested. The smell of gunpowder hung in the room, and my mentor had taken his final bow. I did not imagine my fellow students might have received the same instructions. Yet a deal with the dead is still a deal. Death's sweet kiss I gave to the clown. Then I informed the doctor and the police. Did you now? So you were the one who reported the crime? Indeed, I would think. This fact alone would clear my name of suspicion, or it's just your attempt at giving yourself an alibi. Let's not jump to any conclusions. Yes, the cross-examination generally comes before the conclusions in this court. But if your testimony proves to be true, then the defendant, Zack Gramarye, is guilty. And if it wasn't Zack Gramarye, then the killer was you, Valent. And no disappearing act will get you out of that. Okie dokie. Okay. So, this feels rather clear-cut to me. Yeah, okay. Alright. You mind, maybe elaborating? There were 2 bullets at the scene. One in the victim and one in the clown. And yet nobody's crying tears for that clown. Oh, hey! You're saying the one who shot the clown was you? No doubt my partner Zack has said much the same thing. Yeah, because whoever didn't shoot the clown committed murder. I'd better dig around here a bit more and see what I turn up. Mr. Valent, let me ask you about something else concerning the crime scene. Namely... I think that would make sense. How many pistols were there when you entered the room? Yeah, that's great, because one of them got taken. By which you mean what, precisely? 2 pistols were used in the Zack and Valent quick draw shoot 'em, correct? 1 for each of you. You are well informed, yet only one of my old friends sat in the hospital room that night. What did Zack tell me back in the lobby? He kept his stupid gun in his pocket? Of course, I had no intention of shooting my mentor. I snuck into his room that night at the appointed time and found there upon his bedside table 2 pistols. I took the pistols I had fired and placed it in... Wait, I took the pistol I had fired, I didn't shoot both, and placed them in my pocket. I see no problem with that statement. Only 1 pistol is visible in the photograph of the crime scene, after all. So, you picked up that pistol and fired it? Indeed I did. Alakazam! Alakazing! Alakaboom. That was a little lame, but the court shall accept it. Is the number of pistols really so important? The number of pistols is quite important, Your Honor. Very well. Please add this detail to your testimony. What can I do but obey and twirl my little stick? Only 1 pistol was in the hospital room that night. With it, I shot the clown. Okay. Call me a crazy man, but let's see. Fires 1 real bullet. I mean, I can't think of anything else I can do but present this.
Objection!
Okay, good. According to the defendant, Zack Gramarye, when he entered the room, there were 2 pistols on the table. 2? One of those pistols he used to shoot the clown in the forehead. Then he left with it in his pocket. Of course, this is what he would say. Unlike the hapless clown, we must assume our defendant has some brains in his head. Wow, dissing the clown. He was murdered too, you know. Well, what about what Mr. Valent has told us? You see, there's something about his testimony that doesn't make sense. What might that be? I told you, I took the pistol that was there and shot the clown. That's your story, at least. But the rifling marks tell a very different story, Mr. Valent. Recall what Prosecutor Gavin told us. We compared the bullet taken from the victim's skull with a bullet fired from the gun that was already in the record. Boom, boom, boom. The rifling marks on the bullet were a perfect match. Which means the second gun was the one that shot the magician. Makes sense. Mr. Valent, if you fired this pistol, then you shot the victim in the forehead. Order in the court! This is all rather sudden. What have I done? Prosecutor Gavin? Oh dear God, the crimes I've committed. I owe the court an apology. Sorry. Sorry for what? It is I who am the murderman. You see, I was unaware that 2 of these unique pistols were crafted. The analysis of the rifling marks only proved the type of gun that fired them.
Objection!
Then you're bad at your job! But that's not what you told us before, you liar! You said you'd verified the murder weapon. Which is why I'm apologizing to you now. Quite sincerely, I might add. Would you hold me accountable for a mistake made in my youth? Yes! That was just this morning. I'm still young, and I might add it wasn't really my fault. If the defendant had only admitted he took 1 pistol from the scene of the crime, we would not be having this pleasant discussion now. Valent Gramarye. Yes, Your Honor? You were presented to this court as a decisive witness, but you've proven to be more divisive than decisive. Nice wordplay.
Objection!
What do you object to? You'll see in time. The testimony so far has merely been a review of the facts. The proof comes next. Care to elaborate, Prosecutor Gavin? When Mr. Valent entered the hospital room, the victim had already been shot. As his next testimony will prove, Airite, the real fight is about to begin. Bring it. Ugh. I don't like this. Very well. The witness will now testify to the court. Help us determine who shot what. Okay. I arrived in the hospital room at the appointed time, which is to say, 11:20 p.m. After discovering the body, I fulfilled my obligation, then called in the doctor. The doctor examined the body before the police arrived. He was quite clear about the time of death. 11:10 p.m. And the one in the room at the time was my partner, not me. Okay. Those times are rather close, you have to admit. Like, bump into each other in the hallway close. You're talking about an alibi established over a matter of minutes. To use a 10-minute discrepancy as the basis of your alibi is easy to explain in this situation, Air Judge. For example, take our debut hit single, 13 Years, Hard Time for Love, in all CD stores now. Buy it. Cue to the song, press the play button, and it'll play for 2 minutes, 15 seconds. Ugh, that's such a short song. Do it 100 times, the result is the same. Their debut single was only 2 minutes and 15 seconds long? What a ripoff. Damn! Oh, Phoenix, I'm so glad we exist on the same wavelength to this day. Oh, the more they change, the more they stay the same. Magic is a world of utmost precision. Hocus pocus requires admirable focus. And in the time of death determined by the doctor, there is an incontrovertible truth? That's what I'm going with. Very well. The prosecution warns us that we're dealing with rather precise times, and we can expect the cross-examination to require the same level of precision. I would hope the defense refrains from its customary, broad, sweeping accusations, lest we blur the focus this case so clearly demands. Point taken. Baseless remarks will result in a penalty. Carry on, Mr. Wright. Carry on. Right. Womp womp womp. Alright, well, luckily for me, there's only really one thing I want to take a look at here. Hang on. Doctor examine the body. Alright, hang on. Let's talk a little bit about this. I don't think I'm stepping out on a limb to say I have some doubts about this. How can the doctor be so precise with the time? We do usually only get an estimated time of death, true. In fact, it's usually so vague. It's more vague than it honestly should be more often than it isn't. I'm not sure I've heard of verified time of death. Well, I mean, there was that one time that police officer got pushed off of a railing and he landed on his watch, but, you know, I guess we don't remember that one. Magic revels in making the complex appear simple, but reality is the opposite. What appears complex in this case is a simple matter of subtraction. I see another person has done their arithmetic homework. Point here is the IV the victim was taking. It's quite visible in the photograph of the scene. What about it? Recall what we heard earlier about the victim, Magnifi Gramarye's schedule. Every night at 11, Magnifi took an IV drip for 30 minutes. I can see the IV bag right there, yes. Now look a little closer. Follow the tube down from the bag to the end. Ah! The needle's been removed. Doubtlessly, it fell out when he was shot. I don't think that that's how that would work, honestly. That would seem to be the case. When the needle comes out, the IV no longer drips. Ah! You could just measure the remaining IV liquid. Precisely. The IV liquid functions, for our purposes, as an hourglass of sorts. This is how the doctor determined the time of death. For the amount remaining in the bag, it was determined that the IV had stopped 10 minutes after administration began. And so it was when I, Valent, entered the room. 10 minutes had passed since that horrible crime was committed. And this is proof. Well, Mr. Wright, did that seem important? Oh, it seemed pretty damn important to me. Well, seeing as how is the biggest clue we have of the time of death, I'd say it's very important. Agreed. It'd be hard to imagine a more precise way to determine the time. Behold the power of arithmetic! Very well. The witness will add this detail to his testimony. Sometimes the most magical thing of all is friendship, is the truth. Oh, okay. The water of life springs not eternal. The remaining IV liquid proves my innocence. Okie dokie. Let's just keep talking then. Did you notice the IV yourself by any chance? When first I entered that room, the stench of gunpowder assailed me. Next, the mark of death upon my mentor's forehead. And then his left arm did, I spy, a rose drooping and wilted. It's Thorn, the discarded IV needle. Okay, cut down on the prose. We don't need that. Knocked from the vein by the force of the shot. Luckily for you. If that IV had not been there, why, you might be a suspect. Indubitably so. I might say it's thanks to my lucky color. Your lucky color? Indeed, even today I wear it proudly upon my suspect self, for it always, without fail, brings me luck. Why, when Zack and Valent won their first Magician's Grand Prix, yes, the very one held by the Association of International Magicians, the one we all know, I was adorned in this attire then too, and our trophy, a bust. Ah, what a day that was. This is one trip down memory lane no one needs. My lucky color, yes indeed, and that IV too. I say I think 'twas hued especially for me, Valent. That IV was green. That does seem to be the case. Well, Mr. Wright, any thoughts on this testimony? Valent sure looks happy with himself. Okay, how about this lucky color testimony? Yeah, no, that life juice was green, bro. It certainly sounds like your lucky color brought you plenty of luck. But not this time. Mr. Valent, your lucky colors betrayed you. I'm afraid you've lost me. Not that that's particularly difficult, but still. Your Honor, the witness's testimony just now clearly contradicts the evidence. What? It sure do. It sure do. Please recall my warning at the beginning of this cross-examination, Mr. Wright. Baseless accusations will be duly penalized. Yeah, well, when aren't they? I do hope this latest accusation is well-based. Oh, I assure you, Honor, it's quite based. Don't worry, I've got all your bases ready. I was really hoping you would say the exact same line. That's why I said that. Ah, well. Very well. Let's hear the defense's claim. Where is your evidence that contradicts what Mr. Valent has told us? It's literally the IV. The crime scene tells all, Your Honor. The photo of the crime scene? All this talk of color has me yearning for black and white, clear-cut simplicity. It's not always black and white. Tell us, Air White. White? I mean, yeah, technically. Right, just where is the contradiction in this photo? My pleasure. And I assure you, it's quite simple. But I can't promise anything in black and white. Only greens and yellows. Let's hear what Mr. Wright has to say. What in this photo contradicts the witness's testimony? Check it out, son! Valent Gramarye! Let's get one thing straight about your lucky color. It's yellow, yes? Kind of takes the mystery out of it, but yeah. I like when the facade breaks just ever so slightly. Something wrong with yellow, Mr. Wright? Well, quite frankly, it's a color that doesn't really look good on anybody. But, yes, it is decisively wrong, in fact. Take another look at the photo of the crime scene. Confusion! Doubt! Tell us, what do your elderly eyes spy? Even my elderly eyes can see a problem here, Mr. Valent. Look at that IV bag. Ah! What is this? What? Foul magic? Magic! It would be hard to call the IV liquid yellow, and I'm afraid no magic was involved in the taking of this photograph. Cause... Ah! Now that's a breakdown. Order in the court. What does this mean? It means nothing. Take my word for it, bro. This is some kind of mistake. Yes, Prosecutor Gavin, your witness's mistake. The greener they are, the harder they fall. The pride! The fall! Stop it, Phoenix! I suppose there's no substitute for experience. Valent... Oh, boy. Valent Gramarye, as you reminded us several times, your lucky color is yellow, but the IV is clearly not. Well, this contradiction can mean only one thing. And to think, you almost had me. I see your true colors now, Ace Attorney Phoenix Wright. Something you'd like to tell us, Prosecutor Gavin? As far as this court can tell, the witness's testimony does contradict the evidence. Yes, a contradiction. One that I shall be pleased to hand right back to Mr. Wright. How do you mean? How? Because the witness has made no mistakes. I agree. At a glance, the IV liquid does appear a sort of greenish yellow. But I assure you, the liquid itself is quite yellow. Yellow liquid? How can you say that? As far as I can tell from this photo, it's green. Yes, but what color is the IV bag itself? The bag. You mean the plastic bag on the hook? Looks like I want to say light blue? Precisely! Figured it out yet? Color theory! Put a yellow liquid in a blue bag and you get green. This, incidentally, is the liquid's true color. Okay, but, that doesn't really change anything. Actually, in fact, doesn't this make that worse for Valent? Because that would mean that he knows the exact color of the liquid in the bag. Which is even more suspicious, isn't it? I see. Your explanation does have the ring of truth to it. Plus, we were never... And he said his lucky color was yellow, and it looks green. He would say it looked green, but he didn't. He said it looked yellow, which implies he knows more than he's letting on. How does this help you?
Objection!
As I thought, there's no substitute for experience, Prosecutor Gavin. What? You may tell a good tale, but you've just proven something rather grave. For you, that is. Grave? The liquid in the IV is yellow, yes. But how did the witness know that? Yeah, okay, glad we're on the wavelength there, boyo. It's quite unnatural when you think about it. You did think about it, didn't you? Your Honor, the defense requests an explanation from the witness. At the scene of the crime, the IV liquid appears to be green. So, let me ask, how did the witness know the IV liquid was actually yellow? Ah! Sorry, you need to let me hear this. Oh, I missed this song. Alakazoo, oh my god! Solid. Order in the court! Mr. Wright, you will explain this at once. The witness clearly knew the color of the IV liquid, so I'm sure it means something, but what? I can think of only one possibility, Your Honor. The witness, Valent Gramarye, has testified that the IV liquid was yellow because it looked yellow, he'd seen it before. Are these the same thing? I'll go with more specificity. From the facts before us, the answer is clear. The witness knew that the IV liquid was yellow. Why? Because he'd seen it before. But not inside the blue bag we see in the photo. He saw the liquid by itself in a clear, colorless bag. Suppose he would have had to, but I'm still not clear as to what it all means. Ask yourself, why would he know if he didn't work at a hospital? That's where you'll find your meaning, Your Honor.
Objection!
I'm afraid I find nothing. So what if he knew the IV liquid's color? Leave the getting excited over absolutely nothing to our teeny bopper fans, yeah?
Objection!
Wow, you really just called your fans teeny boppers? God damn, man. The IV liquid is the only evidence proving the time of death. A 30-minute hourglass with a 20 minutes worth of sand remaining. Your claim, Prosecutor Gavin. I remembered well. However, there's a critical difference between an hourglass and an IV bag. Wait, I know! An hourglass uses sand, but an IV bag uses liquid. I'm right? I mean, yes, but no. As much as it pains me to say this, Your Honor, yes, but no. Unlike the sands through an hourglass, these are the days of our lives. IV liquid enters the patient's body, at which point, like magic, it disappears. However, what if the amount of IV liquid had increased? You couldn't tell, could you? After all, there's no way of knowing how much went in.
Objection!
Let me get this straight, Air Wright. You're saying the witness watered down the victim's IV bag? Not with water, but with IV liquid. That's how you knew the IV liquid was yellow. Now, wait. I said wait. How might an amateur such as myself essay to perform such a test?
Objection!
I'm an amateur too, but I can pour water into a cup. At least sometimes. I'm afraid there's quite a big difference between a cup and an IV bag. Quite. Can you prove our witness is capable of such a feat? He has a point, amateurs. I, at least, would have had some difficulty pouring IV liquid into that bag. You don't need to be an expert to see the look on the witness's face. He added liquid to that IV bag to throw off the time of death. I tire of these fairy tales lacking evidence. Well, Mr. Wright, any solid evidence to bring us back down to Earth? Yes. Yes, there is. Valiant Gramarye, I'm afraid your magic won't serve you well in a life of crime. Might I ask what you're strongly suggesting? Magic relies on props, and props become evidence. Our witness was certainly able to increase the amount of IV liquid in the bag. All he had to do was work a little magic. I'm sorry, I just love saying it. And that prop was... Shabambo. The victim's syringe? It's the perfect prop for the magically increasing IV trick. And easy enough for an amateur to use. What kind of evidence is that? The syringe was clean, not a trace of liquid in it. And don't you find that odd, Prosecutor Gavin? What? The victim had the syringe to administer his insulin shots. There should have been traces of insulin left inside. Well, Valiant Gramarye, as you pointed out yourself, the IV liquid makes the perfect clock. One that you could manipulate at will. Alakazog! That man's got a lot of birds in his pants. I feel like we should ask more questions about that. I do believe, well, with this being his first, that the burden of this trial has been a bit too much to bear for Prosecutor Gavin. I'm afraid that, while there is a doubt as to the amount of IV liquid in the bag, the time of death cannot be proven. And that brings our trial to a close for today. Well, maybe I can squeeze an extra day out of this. I could do a little much-needed investigation work. I see there are no objections. Court is adjourned. Okay. Alright. Truly, there's no substitute for experience. Nothing blinds one to the truth so effectively. A word to the wise. Underestimate the young and they'll sweep your feet out from under you. In a way you never ever expected! You see, I know exactly what you're thinking. What's he talking about? You say the witness used the syringe to manipulate the level of the IV liquid? But there's no proof. There's no proof he didn't do it either. Yes, quite true. He's admitting it? Nor was this witness quite as decisive as I'd hoped. This, I admit. After all, why linger in the past when the future holds so much? Have something in mind, Prosecutor Gavin? Proof, Herr Judge. I have another way to prove my case. With evidence, no less. What's this? This is the victim, Magnifi Gramarye's diary. Diary? After going into the hospital, Magnifi began writing his memoirs, it seems. The story of his birth, his startling debut, and of course, meeting his disciples. It seemed he intended for the last chapter to end, quite appropriately, with his death. Wait, that book doesn't say what the reason was, does it? The reason why his disciples couldn't refuse his last request? Sadly, it does not. What's important here is on the last page. Apparently, the victim wrote in his journal that night, even after the IV bag had begun at 11 p.m. Let's read it, shall we? Okay. Ignoring the ripped-out page, I see. Tonight's IV is in, maybe the last. I leave the rest of them. The first should come soon. The journal may end here, or it may go on, but not long. That depends on his hand. All that is left to mine is to lie down this pen, I believe. This does appear to have been written just before his death. Yeah, lay down this pen. There. The court accepts this into evidence. Okay, I see where this is going. Read the very last part with the particular care, why don't you? This journal may end here, or it may go on, but not long. That depends on his hand. Of course, by his, he refers to our defendant, Zach Gramarye. That would make sense, yes. Okay, he was the first scheduled visitor, after all. But look at what he said before that. This journal may end here, or it may go on. It may go on! Magnifi Gramarye intended to write again. That is, if Zach Gramarye didn't pull the trigger. I see the defense understands the meaning of this. The victim's diary does not go on. It ends. Because Magnifi's life was brought to an end by the defendant, Zach Gramarye. Oh boy. Order in the court! Prosecutor Gavin! Are you certain that Magnifi Gramarye wrote this? There's no mistaking his handwriting. Well, this does seem to be significant. According to this, Magnifi did intend to continue his diary. Yet, if his diary ended here, which plainly it did, then the one who pulled the trigger was the first visitor, Zach Gramarye. Well, how do you like me now, Airwright? Still too green for your taste? He's right about the diary being pretty clear. Still, I find it hard to believe that he'd overlook such an obvious problem with his precious evidence. Oh boy. Well, Mr. Wright, the witness's testimony we heard was crack-a-lackin', but we put together with this evidence, it seems quite sufficient for a case. If the diary is accepted like this, the trial's over. Maybe it's time for me to show something. As much as I wish this was time travel, I know that it's not. Alright, let's just get it over with. I'm left with no choice but to show my own evidence that I was given by a small girl in a lobby. Probably not one of our better ideas. You have some evidence that overturns this diary? It's not too late to rethink this and avoid more embarrassment. Oh. Very well, please show us your evidence, Mr. Wright. Incidentally, don't even think of showing us this diary I've just shown the court. Now that we've come this far, I hope you have something a little more decisive. Show us evidence that proves the victim continued writing his diary. Alright, I'd be happy to. The decisive evidence proving that the diary didn't end with this page is... You know the worst part about this? There are definitely ways to prove that it continued to be, used. Even without this thing. Alright, here we go. First, take a close look at this diary. We could have probably, rubbed some charcoal or something on there to get, letter indents. Note that a page has clearly been ripped out. What is this? I hadn't noticed that at all. That's why we're still here talking about this. As it just so happens, I have here what I believe to be the missing page. Alaka, I don't believe it! Looking at this page, it's hard to imagine that the first visitor that night shot Magnifi Gramarye. That's the defense's position. Wait, let me see that. What in Sam Hill? What? This is the continuation of the victim's diary. And yet he remains so incredibly chill. Deep breaths. We'll get through this. Note the torn edge on the page. It's a perfect match with the torn remains of the last page in Magnifi's diary. Quite remarkable. Would you care to explain what all this means, Heir Attorney? The diary continued after his first visitor came, which means that the victim was still alive after Zach Gramarye left, leaving no one to take his life but the second visitor. Valent Gramarye. No. No! The handwriting, too. Matches that on the other pages. This is, without a doubt, the genuine article. Order in the court! But wait, that's impossible! That old man couldn't have written that! Finally. You just couldn't resist, could you, Airwright? Resist what? Presenting solid evidence? Air Judge? Yes, Prosecutor Gavin? Might I request we put the current cross-examination on hold? The prosecution would like to call a new witness. Not to be gross, but I am actively sweating. I don't like this. But Prosecutor Gavin, this evidence overturns the current witnesses. I ask only to put it on hold. Please, my new witness has a very, very important piece of testimony to give. 5 minutes. No more. I promise, Your Honor. Well, if you put it that way, Mr. Wright, what's your take on this? Well, Your Honor, judging from his enthusiasm, we'll have to hear this new testimony sooner or later anyway. So it might as well be sooner. Then, though this is highly, highly irregular, we will put the current cross-examination on hold. The witness may step down. Now, Prosecutor Gavin, please bring this surprise witness to the courtroom. I had a bad feeling just then. That ripped out page was too obvious. He must have known. And I should have known it was a bad sign all around. What? Holding trial with no audience is a first. Even for me, Prosecutor Gavin. I beg the court's understanding. But I had to make a judiciary deal with this witness to secure his testimony. A judiciary deal? The details of his testimony may have some legal ramifications, shall we say. And I thought it best to contain the information to this room. Very well. And you are the witness, I gather? Ah, yes, sir. State your name and occupation for the record. My name's Drew Masham. I'm a painter. A painter? You're somehow related to this case? No, well, not per se. I have one simple question for this witness. Mr. Masham, was it? Do you know what this is? Oh, yeah, I know it well. How's that possible? Have you seen this diary page somewhere before? Oh, yeah, I mean, I made it. You... what? You made it? Yes. You might call it one of my works. The prosecutor's office received a tip-off yesterday. Illegal evidence has been prepared for the trial of Zach Gramarye. Illegal evidence? I initiated an investigation and found this witness. A painter to the world at large, Drew Masham has another side, you might say. He's skilled in making perfect reproductions of certain things. Forgeries, in other words. Forgeries? Well, so we are to understand that this page here is a fake. Prepared by a certain defense attorney. Objection! Whoa, hey, whoa. Hold it! I didn't prepare this evidence! Objection! Ah, the attorney speaks. Something about this page, I presume. But what is he saying? It makes no sense. After all, it was you who presented this evidence to us, Phoenix Wright. Witness! Mr. Masham, was it? Who requested this forgery? Who was your client? That... I don't know. What? Most of my clients prefer to remain anonymous, even to me. I made the items they want and received my payment. That's the extent of my contact with them. Objection! But, there's no proof that this is fake! It's a fake. Huh? To avoid just this sort of problem, I always put a special mark on my works. I can say, without a doubt, this is mine. This is such a setup! Mr. Wright, you've just presented illegal evidence to this court. My court. It was careless of me. That's all I can say. Oh, old boy. Here. What's this? I don't know. I just got it over there in the hall. They told me to give it to the old boy in the blue suit with the spiky hair. They said it was really important. It was all a trap. A fatal trap. Mr. Wright? Yes. Do you have an explanation for yourself? If I did, would the court hear it? Probably not. Forging evidence is a serious crime. And presenting it in court, a serious mistake. A fatal mistake for an attorney. Fatal too, perhaps, for your client, I fear. Tell me, what kind of defendant relies on forged evidence? The answer is quite clear. A guilty one. Objection! Your Honor, wait. I understand that presenting forged evidence in court is a serious crime. But you can't hold my client responsible for actions I undertook as an individual. I'm sorry, Mr. Wright. Your Honor? Another close call, I dare say. If the prosecutor's office hadn't received that hot tip, everything would have gone the way you wanted it to, ya. I even gave you a chance. Too bad you decided not to think before embarrassing yourself. Okay. You're not doing yourself favors with me right now, Gavin. That's all I'll say. I see no need for further discussion on this matter. Special witness dismissed. Mr. Attorney? Yes? Could I ask your name? Phoenix Wright. Mr. Wright. I have seen and studied many people, but none like you. I'll remember you, Mr. Wright. Though I deeply regret having to declare a verdict in this way, this trial is over. You have the right to find a new attorney and make an appeal. However, this court must... Your Honor? Yes, Mr. Zack? There is one thing I wish to make clear. Today, in this courtroom, you cannot declare me guilty. It is impossible. I'm afraid the defendant is quite mistaken. I most certainly have the authority to declare a verdict on you. Except, tell me, how do you plan on announcing your verdict when your defendant does not exist? Doesn't exist? What are you talking about? I am talking about this. Mr. Enigmar? The defendant's escaped! Died him! Quick! Bailiff, close all exits from the building! On the double! He must not be allowed to escape! That day, in that courtroom, a miracle occurred. The defendant, Shady Enigmar, aka Zack Gramarye, did not just escape from court. He literally, unbelievably, vanished. Right before the bailiff's eyes. And then he came back years later. But, no one ever saw him again, not since that day. This is the Gramarye miracle! Ha ha ha. No verdict was declared. After all, the defendant didn't exist. That's how it happened. The trial of magician Zack Gramarye vanished, along with him for all eternity. The mysteries that remained behind were all solved, however. But not until 7 years later. That was every bit as painful as I thought it was. Hopefully we can make it right.